The fluorescent lights hummed their lonely song as Marcus wiped down the mahogany conference table for the third time that night. His weathered hands moved with practiced precision, erasing every fingerprint, every coffee ring, every trace that powerful. People had once sat here making decisions that affected thousands of lives. At 2:47 a.m., the 42nd floor of Sterling Industries was his domain, a kingdom of silence, where a single father with calloused palms ruled over marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto a sleeping city. Marcus had been cleaning these offices for 7 years, invisible to the executives who hurried past him during the day. He preferred it that way. Less complicated, less chance for his daughter Emma's medical bills to become office gossip, less risk of pitying looks when people learned that a man with an engineering degree was pushing a mop to pay for experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover. The elevator chimed softly, breaking the sacred silence. Marcus frowned. Security usually called ahead if someone was working late. His grip tightened on the spray bottle as footsteps echoed down the marble hallway, expensive shoes clicking against the floor with an urgent, unsteady rhythm. "Hello, is someone there?" The voice cracked with exhaustion and something else, desperation. Marcus recognized it immediately. Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, the ghost who lived in the corner office but rarely spoke to anyone below the C-suite level. In 7 years, Marcus could count on one hand the number of times he'd heard the man's voice. Marcus found him slumped against the wall outside his office, still wearing a wrinkled $3,000 suit from what must have been a very long day. Dark circles shadowed Sterling's eyes, and his usually perfect silver hair was disheveled. For a moment, the billionaire looked less like a corporate titan and more like a lost child. "Sir, everything all right?" Marcus set down his cleaning supplies, instinctively stepping forward despite years of training to remain invisible. Sterling looked up, and Marcus saw something he'd never expected to see in those steel-gray eyes. Tears. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone else was here. He gestured helplessly at his office door. "I can't remember my key code. I've been trying for 20 minutes. Marcus had watched Sterling punch in that code hundreds of times from his peripheral vision. 0416, probably someone's birthday. But looking at the man now, Marcus realized this wasn't about a forgotten number. This was about a human being coming apart at the seams. "It's 0416, sir," Marcus said gently. Sterling's hands shook as he entered the code. The lock clicked open, but instead of relief, something like a sob escaped his throat. "Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not usually like this." Every instinct told Marcus to nod politely and return to his cleaning. Get home to Emma before she woke up for school. Mind his own business. But something in Sterling's voice, the same broken note he'd heard in his own when the doctors first delivered Emma's diagnosis, made him pause. "Would you like some coffee, sir?" I was about to make a fresh pot. Sterling looked surprised, as if he'd forgotten other people existed. "You don't have to. I'm sure you want to get home." "Coffee's no trouble," Marcus replied, already walking toward the small kitchen area. "I've got time." They sat in Sterling's office as dawn painted the windows orange and gold, two men from different worlds sharing coffee from paper cups. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with unspoken stories. Finally, Sterling spoke. "My daughter died 6 months ago." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of Emma, asleep in their tiny apartment, her medicine organized in neat rows on the kitchen counter. "I'm so sorry. Cancer, she was 16. Sterling's voice was barely above a whisper. "I missed her last words because I was in a merger meeting. I actually told my assistant not to disturb me unless it was urgent." He laughed bitterly. $100 billion deal was more urgent than my daughter dying. Marcus set down his coffee cup carefully. "You couldn't have known." "Couldn't I?" "She'd been sick for 2 years. I kept thinking I had time, that I could make it up to her later, that the next treatment would work and we'd have decades to fix our relationship." Sterling's hands clenched into fists. "I built an empire, but I lost my child." The confession hung in the air between them. Marcus thought about all the nights he'd rushed home from work, sometimes leaving tasks half-finished because Emma needed him. The choice between financial security and being present had never felt like a choice at all. "What was her name?" Marcus asked. Sarah, she wanted to be a teacher. Sterling pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photo of a beautiful teenager with kind eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She used to volunteer at the children's hospital, reading to the younger patients, said it helped her forget her own pain. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Emma volunteered at their local community center when she was feeling well enough, helping elderly residents with their technology. She sounds like she had a beautiful heart. She did. Everything good in me came from her. Sterling looked out the window at the waking city. After the funeral, I threw myself into work even harder. Told myself I was building a legacy, honoring her memory. But really, I was just running away from the silence in my house. And now? Sterling was quiet for a long moment. Now I realize I've been sleepwalking through my life for 6 months. Tonight, I stood in my penthouse looking out at all the lights in all those windows, thinking about all the families behind them. Parents tucking their kids into bed, helping with homework, being present for the tiny moments that make up a life. And I felt so empty. Marcus understood emptiness. He'd felt it in the months after Emma's diagnosis, when hope felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. Being present isn't about grand gestures, he said quietly. It's about showing up, every day, for the ordinary moments. You sound like you know something about that. Marcus hesitated, then pulled out his own phone. The photo showed Emma at last month's science fair, grinning beside her volcano project. Thin from treatments but radiant with pride. My daughter Emma, she's 10. Been fighting leukemia for 3 years. Sterling's eyes widened. I had no idea. How is she? Responding well to the latest treatment, thankfully. But it's been... Marcus struggled for words. It changes your priorities. Makes you realize that time isn't money. Time is everything. They sat in contemplation as the city came alive below them. Finally, Sterling spoke again. I keep thinking about what Sarah would say if she could see me now. She always believed people could change, could be better. He looked at Marcus. You know what's crazy? In 7 years, you're the first person who's talked to me like I'm human instead of a stock ticker. Maybe you haven't given people the chance? Sterling considered this. Maybe not. I've been so focused on being untouchable that I forgot how to be reachable. He stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. I want to do something. Something that matters. Something Sarah would be proud of. Like what? I don't know. Start a foundation? Fund medical research? Sterling's voice gained energy. Wait, you said Emma's fighting leukemia. How are you managing the costs? Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. We're managing. That's not what I asked. The truth came out in a rush. The second mortgage, the fundraising. The nights Marcus worked 3 different jobs while Emma slept. Sterling listened without interruption, his expression growing more intense with each detail. When Marcus finished, Sterling was quiet for a long time. Then, what if I told you I could make sure Emma gets the best treatment available? Anywhere in the world, no strings attached, no publicity, just because one father wants to help another. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. Sir, I can't accept. It's not charity. It's penance. Or maybe it's hope. Sterling's voice was steady now, more certain than it had been all night. Sarah always said the best way to heal a broken heart was to help fix someone else's. I laughed at her idealism then. I'm not laughing now. The offer was overwhelming, life-changing, impossible to comprehend. But looking at Sterling's face, Marcus saw something he recognized, a parent's desperate love with nowhere to go. Why? Marcus whispered. Because 6 months ago, I was the richest man in the city and the poorest father in the world. Because you showed kindness to a stranger having the worst night of his life. Because maybe Sarah's watching somehow, and I want her to see that her dad finally learned what really matters. 3 months later, Emma's latest scans showed no trace of cancer. Marcus found Sterling in his office again, but this time the CEO wasn't alone. He was on a video call with children at the new pediatric wing his foundation had just opened, reading them a story just like Sarah used to do. Sterling looked up as Marcus entered. How is she? Perfect, Marcus beamed. The doctors say she can start school full-time in the fall. That's wonderful news. Sterling closed his laptop. You know, I've been thinking about what you said that night, about being present for ordinary moments. Yeah, I've been volunteering at the Children's Hospital on weekends, reading stories, playing games. Simple things, Sterling smiled. And for the first time in 7 years of observation, Marcus saw genuine joy in the man's expression. It's not bringing Sarah back, but it's bringing me back to life. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of gold and amber. Two fathers who had found healing in the most unexpected place, in each other's story. Marcus realized that sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't giving someone what they need. It's allowing them to give what they need to give. "Thank you," Sterling said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me as human when I'd forgotten how to be one myself." Marcus smiled, thinking of Emma at home, healthy and whole and excited about tomorrow's spelling test, one of those ordinary moments that made life extraordinary. "Thank you for remembering that kindness isn't about how much you have. It's about how much you're willing to share." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one representing a story, a family, a chance for connection in an often disconnected world. And in that office, 42 floors above the street, two men who had started as strangers discovered that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest act. One human being reaching out to another in their darkest hour.